Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for the pilot of Gang Related. Yes, the funny thing is that the next two videos I'm doing are both pilots, so I find that kind of funny. But, I actually didn't know too much about the show. I'm going to say it right now. I didn't know too much about the show. I didn't even know how the show was going to be or anything. But, I watched it because it's a new show, and I review... It looked like it had a lot of potential, so I decided to watch it. And, yeah, so I gave it a watch, and I didn't recognize anyone in the cast either. But here's what I will say. This show, the premiere was okay. It wasn't anything spectacular, in my opinion. It wasn't anything amazing. However, the show has a lot of potential. It really does. It has a lot of potential to be really good. And it's not that it was bad. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it was bad. It wasn't. It was not bad. It has a lot of potential, and it probably could end up being a really amazing show. I just thought, like, this pilot was very lackluster, in my opinion. So, let's just get to it, because I enjoyed this pilot overall. It just was okay to me, though. Let's get to my review, though. So, we first see a flashback. It is in 1998, which, by the way, is my birth year, so that's kind of interesting. It's a 4th of July party, and we see our main character, Ryan. Ryan is a little boy in this flashback. He steals a 40. He tries to drink with his friend Daniel, but a gangbanger named Carlos tells Ryan to get off his turf, steal Ryan's watch, and this was his dead father's watch. So Carlos and his friends break Ryan's arm. Javier comes and sends everyone away. He gives Ryan his watch back and tells him that he knew his father, and he admits his strength. He tells Ryan he could use someone like him. So, then we go to the actual present, where we basically see that Ryan is now an LAPD officer. He and his partner Tanner, they're in pursuit of an armored truck that was stolen. So, but they can't shoot the tire out, so that's obviously a problem. So Tanner sticks a small bomb in the armored truck, takes it down. They head back to the station and are greeted with a standing ovation by the rest of the force. Their boss then briefs them on a new type of cocaine coming into LA called fish scale, and the Long Beach Lords are trying to establish a fish scale pipeline into LA, which basically fish scale is essentially the main villain of the show. That's basically what they are. They're the bad company in the show that is trying to basically they're the bad guys of the show. There's almost a there's about to be a full-out blown gang war in LA over the fish scale pipeline, so obviously they have to stop it somehow. So they head out for drinks after work, and when they leave the bar, Tanner is drunk, completely drunk. He sees a kid tagging the side of the building. They chase him into an abandoned building, and it's dark, and Ryan can't find Tanner. He then finds two bodies on the floor, calls for backup, and he finds Tanner shot and dying on the floor. I was really surprised they killed off Tanner in, like, the first 5 minutes, because I was just like, you know, when a show is not afraid to kill off a character that could have been a major character, I will give them applause for that, because hats off to them for that, because even though I said the pilot was okay, this was something that, yes, I did enjoy, when a show is not afraid to kill off major characters, because you root for characters, but you can't get too attached to characters. That's what a good character should be. A character that, you know, gets killed off, kind of like how Fargo was this week, where they killed off basically the main character. You know, it's a big deal, and almost like Game of Thrones when they killed off Ned Stark. You know, it's like that sort of thing. You know, you get really attached to a character, then they get killed off. Granted, this character was in the first 5 minutes of the episode, but he could have been a really big character on the show. Obviously, he's dead though, so yeah. So Carlos comes out of the shadows, laughs as Tanner dies in Ryan's arms. Carlos is basically our main villain here, and Ryan pulls his gun on Carlos. Carlos tells him to get his head on straight, remember whose side he's on, and he reminds Ryan of everything his father, Javier, has done for him, and shoots him in the arm, and to make it look like Ryan tried to take him in. So that was a pretty big thing. So Ryan then gets patched up at the hospital. His captain comes to check in on him. He's a mess over his partner's death. Captain tells him to go home and rest, and tomorrow he will help find Tanner's killer. Now, he knows who Tanner's killer is, but Ryan doesn't tell him. So DHS shows up, wants to question Ryan, who, now we find out that the captain is actually her father, which is I thought that was a pretty good reveal, the way they did that. He won't let her in his hospital room. She says, sometimes that's how Caden says it. I mean room. You won't let her in the hospital room, and she says, sometimes you can be a real prick, Dad. And you can see that, she doesn't have the best relationship with her father, so I definitely thought that was interesting right there. Ryan heads home, hops on his motorcycle, and he leaves again. He then heads to a club where Javier is meeting in the back with his sons, Daniel and Carlos, with his son Daniel. Then Carlos barges in, and he attacks Carlos, and Javier kicks Carlos and Daniel out, apologizes for what Carlos did, reassures Ryan that it was an accident. Ryan informs him that the last night was wrong, and he didn't sign on to watch innocent people die. Javier assures him that between his property investments and Daniel's bank, the family will be going clean and legit very soon. He just needs to hang in there a little longer. Now, this scene I overall really enjoyed, because we do get where our main plot is going and things like that, that basically Ryan has to be in this gang now, and it's kind of not his choice. So Captain calls a meeting at the forest. He has a game plan. He wants to go after the gang members' wives and children, put the people that the leaders care about behind bars. He orders them to stop the fish scale deal, find out who killed Tanner. He has a diagram up of all of Javier's family. Now, I think this is going to probably be one of the biggest plots of the season because, he didn't find out who killed Tanner in this episode. So, I think that's probably going to be one of the biggest plots, is that who killed Tanner, and Ryan's not going to tell him. I think the season finale is probably going to be Ryan saying, I know who killed Tanner, and he tells him. So, we'll see what happens there. But afterwards, Ryan meets up with Daniel. He warns him that the task force is going after everyone in the family, including him. Daniel argues that he is clean, but Ryan informs him that it doesn't matter. So Ryan and Cassius head out on the streets, corner a known drug dealer named Lucas. They question him about fish scale. Ty heads to Koreatown to try to dig up some info on Tanner's shooter. Since he was shot in Koreatown, he thinks, okay, I was shot in Koreatown. Tanner was shot there. Maybe I can gather some information to figure out who it was. So he then gets an address for the witness of the shooting. The kid that Tanner saw tagging the building. The tagger then gets tasered, rats out Carlos in a heartbeat. I thought this was actually a pretty good scene. I enjoyed that overall. It was a really intense scene. I like that. So, yeah. So Ryan is at a cookout of Javier's family. He runs into his ex-girlfriend, Sylvia, and this was kind of interesting. Turns out Sylvia is actually Daniel's girlfriend. So right in front of Ryan, Daniel gets down on one knee, and he proposes to Sylvia, and she says yes. So honestly, Daniel, that was a really douchey thing to do. Really, it really was, because this is supposed to... You just propose to your girlfriend in front of her ex-boyfriend. Seriously, that's just something you don't do. It's not. It's douchey. It's wrong. Don't do that. Just don't do it. Ryan leaves. Javier heads into his basement. He has a member of the Lords tied up in the basement, and they are torturing him to get them to tell them where the shipment of fish scale is. So, I think that's also going to be a big plot, to figure out where fish scale is. So, Ryan shows up at the office. Everyone is suited up in bulletproof vests. He learns that they have ID. Carlos as a shooter, and they were making a move on him. Ryan goes to the task force, and they arrest Carlos. Carlos whispers to him that the gun is hidden in the Bible, and Ryan rushes back into the apartment, hides the gun, but the rest of his team frame Carlos and plants a bag of fish scale in his apartment. So Carlos gives up the fish scale deal so that he can avoid going to jail for the drugs that they planted in his apartment. And Ryan and the task force head out to the desert, but the fish scales to bust the Lord Fish Scales deal. They manage to take down the entire operation, which that's a pretty big thing. So then we see, so that was a pretty big thing. So then DEA Jessica Chappelle is heading to her car, and when an internal affairs officer stops her, he wants to know if she spoke to Ryan yet. He's very suspicious because he checked to the crime scene. Ryan never returned any fire. So, that's a pretty big thing. Meanwhile, I'm kind of wondering if Ryan could be accused of Tanner's death, because Ryan was a Ryan, I think, they think he's a suspect because he was with Tanner when he died. So maybe they'll think Ryan died. I'm thinking that'd be an awesome season finale, is if Carlos frames Ryan for Tanner's death. That would be an awesome season finale. I'd love to see that, and honestly, that'd be awesome. If Carlos is that powerful that he puts Ryan in jail, yeah, I want to see that, because I think that'd be a really good twist, and I'd really love to see that. Honestly, I think it would really stir up the show. Ryan heads home, and he receives a very inspirational voicemail from Javier. And Javier's basically telling him how great of a job he did the last few days, how proud he is of him, and everything he has done for the family. So, basically, Ryan's very hopeful at this point. He's very hopeful that this, everything's going to be okay, and you know, he's very hopeful. He then texts Lucas. He tells him that Carlos is the one who shot his friends at the warehouse where Tanner was killed, and he sits in the parking lot, watches Lucas and his friends kill Carlos. So that's pretty big, because they just killed off the main villain of the show. And that's a pretty big thing. So my question is, what else can happen now? I mean, as I said, I was thinking that, this was going to lead to Carlos framing Ryan, but that did not happen. So Carlos is dead now. Who is going to take over for him? I'm wondering who's going to take over here. We'll have to see what happens there. But I'm very intrigued to see who is going to take over for him, because that's going to be really interesting. My other question is, what's going to happen with this whole who shot Tanner thing? Do you think that do you think someone from Fish Scale is going to go and blame Ryan? I could definitely see someone doing that. I could see Ryan getting in prison for that, yes. Javier would probably bail him out of jail, but I could definitely see him, something bad happening there. That definitely could be a big thing. Let's get to the acting in this show. Honestly, the acting is not that strong in this show. I'm going to say that right now. It's not that strong for me. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just not that strong. It's good. It is. It is good. But it's not that strong. I'll say that right now. Ramon Rodriguez as Ryan. He's pretty good. I enjoyed his character overall. I definitely thought he did a pretty good job. Terry O'Quinn as Sam. Also really good. I enjoyed all the performances overall. No one really to highlight or anything, because these are all unknown actors and actresses. They're not that well known, so I definitely think everyone did a pretty good job, though. So I give credit to everybody. Everyone did a pretty good job. But overall, this pilot, as I said, it was okay. The previews, though, show a lot of potential for the show. A lot of action going down the show. A lot of intenseness. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the next episode. I will watch the next episode, because overall, I did enjoy this episode. I did enjoy it. My only complaint is that there were a few scenes in it that were a little bit boring. Just a little bit boring. I mean, if they could have maybe tied up those scenes a little bit and made them a little bit more exciting, they wouldn't have been as boring. That'd be fine. But this episode as a whole was just okay. It was a good pilot. It's what a pilot should do, to introduce you to the characters, and it made you know what the storyline is going to be. I'm thinking the main storyline is going to be, Fish Scale, and also Tanner's case. That's going to be, like, the two main storylines here. Interesting seeing, where all these storylines are going to go. Also, what's going on with the captain and his daughter? I'd like to see a little bit more of that. We'll have to see what happens there. Also, Daniel proposing to Ryan's ex-girlfriend. Where do you think that whole thing is going to go? I'm interested in seeing where that's going to go. And also, who is going to take over for Carlos? I'm really interested in seeing what's going to happen there. And also, do you think they could blame Ryan for Tanner's death? I definitely think they could do that. But that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in my next review, which will be for the pilot of Girl Meets World, believe it or not. I have another pilot to review, so I'll see you guys for that. Bye.